Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. I am the Twisted Jedi, and in today's video I am going to be doing an updated list of all my light side heroes ranked from worst to best. Now keep in mind this is going to be my personal opinion on how I do with the heroes in game. If you guys have a different opinion, that's great. Drop it down in the comments below and let me know from 10 to 1 who your best light side heroes are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump through, because we did have the addition of ANAKIN just recently. I'm going to do an updated list today. I hope you guys really enjoy it, and we're going to jump straight into it because there are a lot of heroes to cover now. Anyway, starting off at number 10 is Chewbacca, and now yes, you probably all have this at the same point on your list. For Galactic Assault, in terms of Chewie, he is very useless. He's not exactly nothing, but he's pretty much next to it. There are points where I'd almost take a Wookiee warrior over Chewbacca because it just feels like their abilities are more suited for Chewie to have than Chewie actually has himself. His Furious Bowcaster is great, don't get me wrong, that is probably the strongest point of Chewie. The Shock Grenade is okay if you're in a little bit of trouble and you need to get out of a situation, but in terms of using it in GA, it's probably not as well suited as it is for heroes vs villains. The last ability for Chewie is his Charge Slam, and that can be good against infantry, but not so much against heroes, and in terms of leaving you exposed, it does in a big way. So if you are using the Charge Slam, make sure you get everyone in the vicinity, otherwise it's going to lead to you being melted by multiple enemies that are infantry. The Charge Slam is also Chewie's way of regenning health. I think that's a little bit silly. I know you guys probably have heard me say this a million times, but I personally think that all regen cards should just be on regular kills and not through the use of abilities like Chewie's Charge Slam, Finn's Undercover Team, and Phasma's Staff Strikes. Things like that make it extremely difficult when they're on the weaker abilities or the lesser used abilities, so I think everyone should just have a health on kill card that is just for standard kills. Now I did just mention Finn, and he is coming in at number 9 and the second lowest on this list. His big deal ability can be good, but the slower movement speed is something that is quite difficult to manage. If you're in trouble and you try to get that health buff, you're going to get a slower speed anyway, which is probably going to lead to you being killed. The only positive to this ability is the buff that you give yourself and your teammates. That can be quite effective if you're doing it in behind cover, but in terms of doing it when you're just trying to escape or get out of trouble, or you need a bit of extra health because you're getting pounded, it's not really going to work the way you want it. So that is partly why Finn is at number 9 on the team. Again, like Chewbacca, his Undercover Team is his way of regenning health, and I personally find that I rarely ever use this ability when I'm playing Finn. Not that I play Finn a whole lot, but I just think this ability is kind of a minimal use thing. I would rather just use his EL Blaster. I think that's really quite good if you can get the hang of it, but Undercover Team just seems like a bit of a pain in my opinion. In terms of the positives of Finn though, his Deadeye ability can be extremely useful, and if you buff it up with different star cards, it can be an absolute monster by clearing out infantry. The Deadeye Recharge card pretty much just gives you extra time with it when you get a kill, so if you have a lot of enemies standing in front of you, that's definitely what you're going to want to be using, because you can get infinite charge time if you've got enough enemies standing there, and it's just going to melt through all the infantry that are in your way. Anyways, getting into number 8 now, we are going to talk about Princess Leia, and as much as I hate to put her this low on the list, it just seems to be where she falls for me. Her Flash Grenade doesn't really do too much, and in terms of getting blinded by it, you can still see the red outline of where Leia would be, or the player's name above their head, so it's not 100% effective. I've always said this, and I think the Flash Grenade that does damage from the officers should be switched with Leia's Flash Grenade, and that way it might balance out a little bit, and Leia might be a little bit more effective using that. The Squad Shield is good when you're playing objectives, but most of the time when you get a hero, you're out and about trying to clear through infantry so that your team can protect the objective, and I think placing the shield and then leaving it just leaves you super exposed to fire. So it's a little bit hit and miss. It can be good, but it's very situational in my opinion. The Rapid Fire, where she gets the boosted E11 blaster out and just gets an extra boost of speed on that blaster, is good, but I definitely think her standard blaster is much better than that, so I tend to stick with it and not really use the Rapid Fire ability too much at all. So it's probably why she's a little bit lower on my list. I think her standard blaster is probably the most effective ability or thing that she has that separates her as a hero. Now coming in at number 7 is going to be Lando, and we take a big jump from the bottom 3 because I think this is split into 3 different sections on my ranking list. The bottom 3, the middle 4, and then the top 3 all are separated by a fair little bit. So we get Lando in at number 7. His Smoke Grenade can be good, but again, it's one of those situational abilities. It's not effective all the time. It's more if you're trying to escape out of a situation that you get stuck in, and you can just pop a smoke and maybe even throw the Stun Grenade in there and try to get away from your enemies. Speaking of the Stun Grenade, that is obviously called Disabler. We all know this by now. The good thing about this is if you leave it on the ground and don't detonate it right away, it does give you a heads up on the minimap where there are enemies that are nearby it, so you can know when to stun or when to aim fire and zoom in so you can see them through the smoke. Most of you guys know this got a nerf in the last patch, but it is still quite effective in both GA and Heroes vs Villains. villains, so if you guys are looking to use Lando, make sure you're still making the most use of Disabler. In terms of his sharp shot ability, by far the best ability Lando has. Much like Finn's Deadeye, this locks on to pretty much anyone in the vicinity and wipes them out in one hit essentially, so it is extremely powerful against infantry. Can be quite good against heroes too, especially if you come up against one of those Palpatines or Bosks that tend to jump all over the place and be extremely difficult to aim at. This can be a way of taking them out, including Boba Fett when he's flying around with his jetpack. So Lando at number 7. Getting into number 6, we talk about Luke. Now, Luke is one of the most fun characters to play in the game. I love using him. I tend to pick him. I get stuck every now and then with that star card glitch where it removes all these star cards from him and I get super frustrated, but hopefully that's fixed shortly. In terms of his abilities though, he is an absolute monster. His force push doing 150 damage to infantry can wipe out everyone except for a heavy or a buffed officer in one go, which makes it extremely viable in Galactic Assault. His repulse ability is quite good as well, although in terms of using it in Galactic Assault, you probably want to use it in combination with one of the other abilities. The best one I've found is using his third ability, which is Rush, where he jumps in and attacks an enemy with his lightsaber and then follow that up with the repulse to finish them off. I think the combination of these two can be extremely useful and good for Galactic Assault. I wish I could put Luke higher on my list, but the next 5 heroes are just that good. Coming in at number 5, we have Han Solo, and Han is one of my favorite blaster heroes to play, if not the best in the whole game. I think his shoulder charge is essentially a good escape mechanism. I don't really use it for much other than that, but his sharpshooter is really good against heroes, and his detonite charge, well, we all know just how good that can be. If you throw that into the middle of a bunch of infantry, that is going to wipe out pretty much everyone that is sitting there. So make sure you guys are using this as much as possible, because if you're not, you should be, and it's going to do a world of hurt to the enemy team. Coming in at number 4 is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, most of you probably think this is a weird place to put him. I personally love using Obi-Wan. He's quite fun to play, and if you get him on the right map, he can be extremely useful and you can get a lot of kills with him. His all-out push, now that it has a damage reduction attached to it, is really good, and his restrictive mind trick, well, as much as that's situational as well, it can be quite effective when you're going up against other heroes to take away their role, especially if they're a blaster hero that likes to dodge a lot. You can restrict this from them and pretty much just wipe them out straight away. So that's quite good as well. And then the defensive rush, if you use the star card to boost the damage on this, you are going to clear out every hallway that you charge into. I've gotten multiple plays where this has happened and just beast the enemy team with that ability. Coming in at number 3 is going to be Yoda. Now, Yoda is extremely good in GA. He's so small, his hitbox is tiny, he's hard to aim at, he moves quite quickly, so it makes him the perfect hero for Galactic Assault. He only comes in at number 3 because I think the top 2, just their ability combinations, are a little bit better than Yoda's, but in terms of Yoda's abilities, the Unleash is great when it's charged up, wiping out infantry straight away. As long as you can get that quick charge on, then you're going to be taking out enemies all over the joint. Presence is a health boost, which does not only boost Yoda, but it also boosts his teammates, which in my opinion, I don't think it should, but it is quite cool of the ability. It's hard to go up against when you're trying to push an objective, but if you're using it personally on your teammates, then it can be very helpful. His dash attack again is great in combination with a regular lightsaber strike, so make sure you're using this to maximize the damage output and the minimum damage taken. Now we're moving into the top 2, and Rey is coming in at this position. Her mind trick, as you guys know, can be extremely effective. It can make a lot of people mad in terms of how confusing it is and reversing all the controls and things like that. If you get that hit and then Rey charges in at you with her dash, you are in for a lot of trouble. You pretty much can't avoid it. The only thing that I've found is to get out of it is to jump up in the air if you're using a lightsaber hero or someone with quite a high jump like Palpatine or Bosk. If you guys can do that, then you have a chance of surviving. But if you're playing someone like Iden and Rey gets you in this mind trick, you're in a lot of trouble. You're probably going to die, so there's not much way to avoid it. Her insight allows her to see through walls and pretty much wall hack essentially, so that's going to be an effective ability nonetheless. And then combine this with her dash strike, which when buffed with a star card can take out infantry in one hit or heavies with a follow-up strike. So this is something you want to be using definitely. This card improves Rey's dash strike tenfold, so you want to be using that as well, which is why it puts her at number 2. Number 1 on the list though, of course you guys probably figured it out, it is going to be the chosen one, Anakin Skywalker. I'm pretty sure nobody is surprised by this decision. Even though he did receive a nerf in the last hotfix, he is still extremely good in GA and probably the best hero in the entire game. His heroic might did receive a buff, and most people know not to shoot at him now, so it's kind of an okay ability, but it can still be very effective. So if you guys see Anakin charging up heroic might, don't shoot him, run away, do your teammates and yourself a favor and just get out of there before he takes out your entire squad. The pool dominance is great for GA and heroes vs villains, basically being able to yank enemies towards you that land right at your feet and follow them up with a strike that's going to take them out. That is perfect. That's just what what you want, especially for those pesky Bobas and Palpatines that tend to spend most of their time up in the sky. His Passionate Strike is one that's great again, and this is a game changer in terms of abilities. Being able to break a lightsaber user's block and knock them to the ground is something that we have needed desperately for heroes vs villains, and Galactic Assault for those heroes that tend to block a lot, like Count Dooku and Darth Vader. These guys have higher stamina, so it is harder to swing through, so make sure you're using this ability to get on top of them. And for Anakin's last ability, it is obviously Retribution. This is the only passive charged ability in the game. The fact that Anakin has a fourth ability just shows how powerful he is and why he's coming in at number 1 on the list. This ability is so satisfying to use, getting into a group of enemies and just picking every one of them up and strangling them to death. I think DICE did an amazing job with the animation and the sound effects on this ability, and its damage output is absolutely god level. So for those of you that are wondering, yes, Anakin is the best hero in the game. Anyways guys, that's going to do it for this video. What did you think of my rankings? Be sure to comment on it down below and let me know your rankings as well. And if you guys want to see an updated video for the villains as well, which will include all 10 villains, I will absolutely do that for you guys as well. Anyways, I'm going to jump out of here. I appreciate all you guys that tuned in and checked out this video. If you are new to the channel, consider subscribing. I post Battlefront videos all the time, and we are live streaming as much as possible. So I hope to see you guys in one of those streams soon. I'm going to get out of here though. I am the Twisted Jedi, and may the Force be with you always.